Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel. Today thank you so much for stopping by. In this video we are going to be making this shoulder cupped corset that you can see on your screen. If you're interested, keep on watching and let's get started. I already have my pattern paper on my work table and I've gone ahead to rule out my points. So the distance from my shoulder to my chest line is 8 inches. I went ahead to rule a straight line across. The distance from my shoulder to my bust point is 10 inches. I also went ahead to rule a straight line across. Distance from my shoulder to my under bust point is 14 inches, and the distance from my shoulder to my half length, which is the waistline, is 17 inches. My pattern paper is on fold, so I'll go ahead and start taking my measurements. I'll label my chest line, my bust line, my under bust line, and my waistline, just so I don't get confused. On the start of this pattern paper, which is my shoulder line, I'll take half of my shoulder measurement and I'm going to go down on that point by half an inch, and then I'm going to slant from there into the neckline area. After doing that, I'm going to make sure I have the same shoulder measurements. The shoulder measurement I'm working with is 8 inches. So I'll make sure I have the 8 inches on my chest line also. And I'm going to indicate the 8 inches with a dot. After doing that, I'm going to connect the dot on the shoulder slope to meet the dot on the chest line in a straight line like this. After doing that, guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to place my tape on this straight line that I have right here, and I'm going to divide what I have into 2 equal halves. To know the middle, the center of this straight line, I'm going to fold my tape just like you see me doing, and I'm going to mark the middle. I'm going to indicate the middle with a dot. The next thing I'll do is to place my bust circumference divided by 4. I'm going to place my tape on the chest line and I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. I'm going to connect from the dots that I have on this straight line to meet the dots that I have on the chest line like this. After doing that, guys, I'm going to take half of my nipple to nipple measurements. I'll take the measurement on the bust line, on the under bust line, and on the waistline. After doing that, I'll connect the 3 dots into a straight line. Next thing I'll do is to take my dart. To do that, I'm going to take 1.5 inch on the waistline, and I'll take 1.5 inches on the under bust line. So I'll take it on the center front and on the side front. After doing that, I'll connect into a straight line. Next thing I'll do is to use my ruler to connect from the bust line to meet the under bust line in a curve like this. I'll repeat the same thing for the other side of the dart leg. The next thing I'll do is to take my neckline measurement. For the width, I used 4 inches, but the 4 inches became too much, so I think you should use either 3 inches or 3.5 inches. And for the depth, it depends on how deep and how open you want the chest line to be. So you can start from the chest line or you can go down to the bust line. For me, I'm going to stop at 8 inches, which is my chest line. So what I'll do is to slant from the neck width to meet the neck depth like this. The next thing I'll do is to place my measurements. So I already have my bust circumference divided by 4 on the chest line. What I'll do is to add 2 inches to that measurement for my stitching allowance, because the dart did not get to the chest line, so I'm not going to add that allowance to the chest line. The next point is the under bust line, so I'll place my under bust circumference divided by 4. I'll replace this dart of 3 inches and I'll add 2 inches for my sewing allowance. On the waistline, I'll place my waist circumference divided by 4. I'm going to replace the 3 inches dart and I'll add 2 inches as my stitching allowance. After doing that, I'm going to connect the dots together. After placing my measurements and connecting the lines, what I'm going to do is to cut. So pay close attention so you know where to cut. So I went ahead to cut out the neckline, the armhole area, the sides, and I'm going to cut out my dart like this. After cutting it out, this is what I have. The next thing we're going to do is to create the cup. So I'm going to place my ruler on the chest line and I'll connect to meet the under bust line in a curve. I'm placing my ruler in such a way that there will be space for my bust to sit. So I'm going to just connect from the chest line to meet the under bust line like this. For the other side of the cup, you can decide to go down from the armhole by 1 inch and then connect from that point to the under bust line. So it depends on what you want. You can connect directly from the armhole area to the under bust point. So I'm going to place my ruler like this and I'll connect. After connecting, this is what I have. So if you want to go down by 1 inch, I went down by 1 inch before connecting this one. If you want to connect directly from the armhole, just go ahead and place your ruler like this and then connect. After connecting, this is what I have, guys. What I'm going to do now is to cut out this cup part. For the center front, as you can see, I went in by 1/4 inch before cutting out the cup, and I also cut the other part through the armhole. So after cutting, this is what I have. I have the 2 cups and I also have the center and the 2 sides. So you can do this with a princess dart bustier, you can do it with a shoulder dart bustier, and you can also take in your side darts, but I'm doing this to make it easy so that everyone will understand. And I hope you guys are not confused. So these are my pattern papers for the front, and that is why I had to cut it on fold just so you guys will understand. So we have the cups, the center front, and the 2 side fronts. So this is what I'm going to place on my fabric and I'm going to cut for the front. So let's go ahead and draft out the back. For the back, guys, I've gone ahead to also rule out my lines. The distance from my shoulder to my chest line is 8 inches. Distance from my shoulder to my bust point is 10 inches. Distance from my shoulder to the under bust point is 14 inches, and the half length, which is the waistline, is 17 inches. The important lines that you need here is the chest line and the waistline. So I'm going to label my lines. After doing that, I'm going to go ahead and place half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. So before I forget, if you want to add a zipper to your dress, go ahead and place your zipper allowance first before you start marking out your points. But if you want to add loops to the back of your dress, there's no need to add any zipper allowance. So what I did was to place the same measurement that I have on the shoulder line on the chest line, and then I connected the 2 dots into a straight line. After doing that, I'm going to go down on this straight line by 1/2 inch for my shoulder slope, and then I'll slant from that point into the neckline area. The next thing I'll do is to take my neckline. So for the width, like I did for the front, I took 4 inches, but I said you should take either 3.5 inches or 3 inches. I will indicate that and I'll go down by 1 inch for the depth. After doing that, I'm going to connect the 2 dots like this. The next thing I'll do is to take my dart. So I'll take half of my nipple to nipple measurement on the bust line, on the chest line, on the under bust line, and on the waistline. After doing that, I'll connect all the dots into a straight line. The next thing I'll do is to go down from the chest line by 1 inch. I will indicate the 1 inch with a dot. After doing that, I'm going to take half an inch on both sides of this straight line. I will connect from the waistline to meet the mark that I have below the chest line like this. After taking my dart, the next thing I'll do is to start placing my body measurements. On the chest line, I'll place my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll indicate that, and then I'll add 2 inches for my stitching allowance. On the waistline, I'll place my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll replace the dart of 1 inch and I'll add 2 inches as my stitching allowance. After doing that, I'll connect the dots together. Place my tape on this straight line and I'm going to divide what I have by 2. After doing that, I'm going to indicate this middle point with a dot. After doing that, I'll connect from that point to meet the mark that I have on the chest line like this. So if you don't want the back of your dress to be open, you can just go ahead and cut. Like I said before, don't forget to add your zipper allowance if you're adding a zip to your dress. I want the back of my dress to be open, so from the neckline I'll go down by 1 inch. After doing that, I'm going to use my ruler to connect. You're going to determine how wide you want the opening to be. For me, I want it to be 3.5 inches, which is where my dart leg is. So I'm going to use my ruler to connect from the dart leg to meet this 1 inch mark like this. So that is how opened I want the back of the dress to be. After connecting, I'm going to go ahead and cut. After cutting it out, this is what I have. I'm going to label the back pattern and we'll cut out the skirt. For the skirt, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 4 and I left 2 inches for my zipper allowance. I'm cutting both the front and the back piece together. So I have the part that is folded and the part that is not folded. The part that is not folded is the back, which is underneath, and that part is going to serve as the zipper allowance. I hope you understand. The next thing I'll do is to take my point. I'm going to place my tape on the waistline, which is the start of this fabric, and I'm going to mark distance from my waist to my hip, which is 9 inches. I'm going to indicate the 9 inches and I'll rule a straight line across. After doing that, I'm going to label the line my hip line, and I'll label the start of this fabric my waistline. My dress length is 42 inches. So to know the amount of fabric you'll be needing for the skirt part, go ahead and reduce the skirt length by your half length. So the half length is 16 inches. I know I marked 17 inches. 1 inch is for stitching allowance. After taking out the 17 inches, I marked out the rest part. So my dress length is 42 inches. The next thing I'll do is to place my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll indicate that. I'm going to add 1 inch for that and I'll add 2 inches for my stitching allowance. So I'm taking my measurement backwards, leaving the zipper allowance on the back. And on the hip line, I'll take my hip circumference divided by 4 and I'll add 2 inches for stitching allowance. And then I'll connect from the waist to meet the hip like this. Next now, I'll do is to place my tape on the hip line and I'll mark what I have. What I have there is about 12.5 inches. I'm going to reduce that measurement by 2 inches because I want the base of the skirt to be really penciled. So if you want it to be just straight, you can go ahead and connect from the hip line all the way down. But I want it a little bit fitted, so I reduced 2 inches from what I had from the hip line and I connected. After doing that, I'll go ahead and cut. After cutting, this is what I have. I'm going to go ahead and notch my zipper allowance just so I know where my zipper allowance is. I'll do that for the waist area and I'll also do the same thing for the base. I'll also go ahead and notch the hip line also, just so I don't get confused when I'm sewing my fabric and my lining together. After doing that, I'm going to go ahead and take my darts. To take the darts, I'm going to place my tape on the center front and I'll go out by half of my nipple to nipple measurements. On that line, I'll take half an inch on both sides. I'll determine the length of my dart, which is 3 inches. I'll connect like this. After doing that, I'll connect the half an inch mark to the length of the dart like this. So take note that I took my dart line from the center front. I did not extend it to the zipper allowance. After doing that, I'm going to go ahead and notch my dart like this. After notching, I'm going to place this fabric on my lining and I'm going to cut it out. The only difference between the lining and the main piece is I'm going to reduce the lining by 1 inch because I want to fold 1 inch in. So this is my front. Your front should be on fold and these are my 2 back piece. Okay. So guys, that is all for the skirt part. Just go ahead and cut out your lining piece using the main fabric. So I've gone ahead to place my cup on my lining piece. I want to use the lining to cut on my fabric. So I went ahead to sew one of this pattern paper just so you guys will understand what we are trying to achieve. So after taking in your darts on your fabric, this is what it's going to look like. So I went ahead to add half an inch all the way around except the neckline and the armhole area. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut like this. After cutting, guys, this is what we have for the cup. I'll use this to cut on my main piece. And for the center front also, I went ahead to add half an inch on the side, even on the center, which I think it became too much, so you can just add 1/4 inch on the center. The next one is the side. I went ahead to add half an inch on the cup area and on the center, but I didn't add half an inch on the side because I already have my stitching allowance there. After cutting, this is what I have. So I have the cup, the center front and the side front, and everything here is on fold, so I have 2 pieces each. So what I'm going to do is to place them on my main fabric and I'll cut. So for the back, guys, I changed my mind. I decided to add zipper allowance, so I went out from the pattern paper by 2 inches, which is going to serve as my zipper allowance. I'm going to go ahead and I'll cut. After cutting, I will adjust my zipper area. I already have 2 inches there. I'll take out half an inch from that measurement on the waist area and I'll connect from that point to meet the chest line, just like you see me doing. This is to avoid zip bulge. After connecting like this, I'm going to continue cutting. So on the shoulder area, I'm going to add half an inch to that measurement. I'll cut out the back. I'll not add any allowance to the back. Okay, I'll also cut out the neckline without adding any allowance. The only place I'm adding allowance here is the shoulder area. After cutting, this is what I have. I'll go ahead and place this lining on my main fabric and I'll cut. I'll notch the zipper allowance and I'll notch the dart, and then I'll place them on my main fabric. I'll go ahead and cut. And yeah guys, that is all for this tutorial. Please stay tuned for the sewing version of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave your questions in the comment section. I'll see you guys in the next one.